What's up, guys? Thank you for visiting us at yourrealestate101.com. Now we are ready to see the property. If you made it this far in the video, then you are serious about getting into real estate investing. One helpful thing you can do is make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn on notification. In this video, we will go into more details on things you need to do. Remember, from the other part of this series, buying your first rental, we developed our criteria. If you have not seen this video, I recommend you take a look at it. I will have the playlist at the end of this video. Okay, so we are looking for a fourplex. What that means that we want the property to have 4 apartments. We are also looking for tenants to be living in the property already. The reason for this is I want you to make money from day one. And if there are people living there, chances are everything's working. If you are not sure what I am talking about, again, I ask you check part 1, part 2, part 3 in this series. My goal is to walk you through step by step in buying your first rental with tips and tricks to save time and money. So don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification so you can get these videos first as soon as they come out. So here is part 4 to buying your first rental, the inspection. Let's talk about what you need with you while you are doing your inspection at the properties. Number 1, you need a phone. This is probably the most important thing of any of the tools you're going to need. The phone has to be able to take good quality pictures, especially in the dark. Some phones have low light features that would even be better. The great thing about the phone is that it can also record your voice or record the inspection. This can be very handy. Sometimes the people are showing you the apartments, are saying things, and then later they'll say they didn't say it or they forgot. Your phone can also act as a measuring tool. If you have that app loaded onto it, you can actually use it to measure the rooms if you want to make sure a room is legal size, things like that. So this is your number 1 tool. Number 2, footwear. Remember, we are going into a property that has someone living in it. Going into someone's house with your shoes on, to some people this could be disrespectful. You'll kind of figure out whether you should take off your shoes, and I probably would not. I don't care to take off my shoes, but what you can do is bring a foot covering, and then that way you can cover your feet, especially if you intend to go into the basement, which can be kind of, if it's a dirt floor basement, this can kind of get messy in the person's apartment. So you want to have that. If you are going into the basement and it's, let's say, a dirt basement, you might want to consider having either some rubber shoes or some boots or something that can kind of get mud on them. Usually a great realtor should have showing instructions. However, information can be lacking in the rental business, especially in the C and below class properties. There has been lots of time tenants didn't even know the apartment was being shown. So that gives you an idea. Okay, number 3. Another thing you should have is a flashlight, just in case you reach an area where there is not enough light for you to see what's going on. You can think to yourself, well, I can use my phone, but the problem is you're using the phone to take pictures, and some phones cannot do both. Number 4, a mask. I know it's the time of COVID, so it's a good idea to generally wear a mask, but before COVID and even after COVID, another reason to wear a mask, because basements and attics can sometimes have like either be very dusty or mildew smells, that kind of thing. An inspection list. Even if you don't have any idea what you're doing on the inspection, a list will be super helpful in keeping you focused. A good realtor will see that this is a sign that you are a person who knows exactly what they want and know what they're looking for. For a realtor, this could make life much easier because it means that they're not going to be wasting their time with an investor who has no criteria, who doesn't know what they're doing, and they're just kind of like winging it and changing their minds along the way, which can cost more time and money. Number 6 is a drone. If you do have a drone, I mean, it's not 100% necessary, but I'll tell you, if you have a drone, this can help a lot when it comes to the roof inspection. Now that we know what we need, let's get to that property. So we show up to the property, try to show up there 15 minutes early. You don't want to be late. This can make the realtor never want to work with you again. When you get there, pull your phone out and go to the property, walk across the street. You will take a picture of the property. We want to make sure we get all the way to the top of the house where we can see the top of the roof, and then all the way to the bottom where we could even see the street. Then you want to turn the camera to the right side of the house and take a picture of all the houses that's in that side of the property, a wide shot. And then the same thing with the left side. Then go to the property and turn around and take a picture of the house across the property directly. Then turn to the right, take a picture of the houses to the right of that property, and then you turn around and do the same thing on the other side. Now, see if you can see the roof from the street. If you can, try to get some shots of that. If you can't get some photos of that, this is the time where you can use that drone if you own one or if you have one. If you do, then what you will do is you will use it to inspect the roof. This can be very cost effective, and it's something you should think about in the future, especially if you intend to do a lot of these type of purchases. Many time owners will patch a roof last minute for the showing or to sell the property, and a drone might reveal this. Or if you have a ladder, which is not very practical, carrying a 30 or 40 foot ladder, so a drone would work. But if you don't have that, then you'll do as best as you can and try to get images from the street. Now, the cost of the drone would not compare to the cost of if you have to do repairs to that roof after you purchased it because you didn't get to see it. So you can save your money at that point. Now, when we are going to go throughout the property, we will be taking 6 photos in each room. The ceiling is 1, the floor is 2, and each wall is 4. If you see anything strange, take a picture. And if you see the tenant, make sure to ask them questions about themselves, their family, and about the property, specifically about the property. Remember, the tenant knows the property better than anyone, even better than the owner, because they live there. They know if the heat is not working right. They know if the plumbing is not working right. So giving them a good impression right now could be really good, because they often will think, okay, let me tell this guy all the things that's not working. This way he can fix it for me since the current owner's not. Also, this is the time you will get to see their temperaments. Now, often they will tell you pretty much what's going on in the property. And there's some cases, sometimes where you get a tenant who doesn't want to say anything because the owner asked them not to. So just be ready for that. Now, at the same time you're doing that, you also want to make sure you are talking to that realtor and keeping that going, because remember, we're headhunters too. We're trying to see if this realtor is the kind of realtor that we want to work with in the future. And we want to make sure that if they are, we want them to feel comfortable with us, so we are the client they want to work with in the future. Keep things fun and light. Now, this is also why it's important to have the list. While doing all this talking, and you might end up forgetting all the things you're supposed to check. So having a pre-written list will help a lot. Now, here are some things you have to put on that list. Note, depending on your area, you add things that can affect that area. Like if you are in an area where it gets really cold, then you want to make sure that you are checking that furnace like a little bit more than usual. Like you want to make sure you know the age of the furnace and other stuff like that. If you are in an area where there's like termites issues, then you definitely want to be checking a lot of the wood structures around the property. So here is some of the basic things you want to have on your checklist. Okay, now let's start with bathrooms. How many are there? Check the floors of the bathroom. Are they in good shape? Check for leaks underneath the sink, around the tub, and around the toilet. Do you see any stains, any signs that there could have been a leak, or there was a leak, or is there a leak? Now, the other thing too, check to see if there's a window or a vent system. You don't want to get stuck with a bathroom that's not permitted, that someone went and just put together and it's not legal, where you will have to break it down and start over. Okay, now bedrooms. Check how many bedrooms there are. check the floors out, see what type of floors they are, check to see the conditions of the floor. Is there a window big enough for a person to fit through it? You don't want an apartment where the windows are really, really small and you can't go through them, which would mean that they would not be legal. I can tell you times where I went to buy a property and they had converted the building from a house to a store, then back into a house. And I guess in the process, they changed the windows, and the windows were like super small, which made the bedrooms not legal. Are there closets in each room that they're calling a bedroom? How big are the rooms? Are they good sizes or are they too small? Are they kind of small? If they're very small, then you might want to use your phone or something to measure the room out and make sure it's somewhat legal size. Sometimes a seller will call an area a bedroom, but they are not legal bedrooms. Check your areas to be sure the code's in your area. But in my area, a room has to meet a certain size requirement. You have to have a window and a closet. Realtors are supposed to make sure this is written in the description, or they will not call the apartment a 3-bedroom. They would only call it a 2-bedroom with an office space or something like that. But sometimes, realtors are not always the greatest. They can also just make a mistake, or they can actually just go by what the owner said. So, but you right now are checking for yourself. Okay, this is the reason why we're doing the inspection. Okay, now let's look at it. The kitchen. Go straight to the sink. Look for leaks under it. Is there any leak? Is the bottom of the sink, is it warped? Does it look like there could have been leaks at one point? Is there a bucket? Often tenants will put a bucket. If there's a sign of a leak, they'll have a bucket pretty close, pretty nearby. Open one of the cabinet doors. Look on the hinges closely for something that looks like a bunch of peppers. If it looks like pepper grains, if you find anything that looks like pepper grain, chances are there's roaches in this apartment. And now you need to find out, is the roaches current or is it some past issue? If you see also some little squirt of let's say like a peanut butter like thing, then that means that the apartment is being treated for that. The refrigerators and stoves, are they new or old? You might not want to buy a property with really, really old fridges and stoves, because you might be the one having to shell out like another $2,000 on trying to buy new appliances for tenants. And ask the tenants, do they own the stove? Now, the realtor should have this in the paperwork. However, this can be very confusing because sometimes people are not watching things. They don't really know that well. Like the owner itself sometimes don't even know that the fridge actually is owned by the tenant, or, the vice versa. Okay, now for the basement. If there are apartments or an apartment in the basement or attic, we want to pay close attention to exits and window sizes. Later, we will check to make sure this is permitted by codes. In many basements, this is where you will find the property's mechanics, such as the heating system, the water heater, the electric panel box, meters. And sometimes they can be in the apartments or in a utility room in another floor. However, in our situation, in this one, we will say that they are in the basement. Now, check the furnace. How many are there? If there are one, chances are the landlord could be paying for everyone's heating. However, this is not 100% the case, because they could have a different source of heating in the units. But now we have a question or something to ask or something to investigate to make sure that is the case. Another thing, how old is the furnace? When was it last serviced? Is there any water stains on the side of the furnace? Remember, we want to take pictures of all these things as we're doing this inspection. So you want to take all 4 sides of the furnace. So just know that. Another thing you want to photograph and inspect when you're inspecting the furnace and the heating system is the ducting. You want to make sure you photograph it to see if it's wrapped around with a white paper-like thing that could be asbestos. Now, if it's in great shape, then you are fine. You won't have any issues. However, at the same time, if it's deteriorating, know that you're going to have to probably remove it, and it can be extremely costly. Now, keep that in mind. Remember, this is all things we just want to know what we're getting into. That doesn't mean you have to say no, you're not going to buy the property. Anything could be fixed in real estate. You just need to know what it is you're getting into, and will the numbers work out at the end. You also want to check electric panels. How many panels boxes are there? Is it fuses or breakers? Are there any wires hanging loose in the basement? Again, one electric panel could signal that the owner is paying for everyone's service. An easy way to check this one is to check how many meters there are. If there should be, in a 4-unit, there should be somewhere between 4 to 5 meters. 4 meters is very common. However, sometimes there's a 5th meter, which is for the common area, which the landlord pays for. So if there's 5 meters, then you know that the landlord most likely is paying a bill every month to keep those lights in the basement or in the hallways on for the tenants. Another thing to look for, are there gas meters in the basement? How many gas meters are there? Again, this can help you know who's paying for the utilities. These days, most utility companies often will relocate their meters outside. This way they can get to it when they need to, like to shut it off or turn it on, and then they don't need to have someone come out and open the doors for them for the basement. Now, water heaters. How many water heaters are there? Again, same thing. If you see one water heater, you should start asking questions, but systems can be located inside each apartment. Now, if you do have the water heaters in the basement, take pictures of that too. Check to see if there's any water stains on the bottom. The water stain would basically indicate that there could be some flooding, which would then tell you that there could be an issue with either the plumbing, the drain, maybe the area is flooding, water's getting into the basement somehow. So it just calls you to ask a little bit more questions to kind of understand that property a little better. In a finished basement, you may not actually have any access to the foundation. So that might be a little harder to see what's going on there. But if you do have access, like in a basement where it's dirt or you have access to the foundation, look for cracks. Take photos of each side of the walls. If you're looking for water stains, all that we're going to analyze and make sure that the property is not having water issues and foundation issues as well. Now for the attic. Like the basement, if the attic has apartments in there, we want to make sure that this apartment is permitted. So we want to take pictures just like before, 6 shots of everything. And what we're going to specifically look for is stains to see if there's any brown stains, brown marks in the ceiling. Now, if there's an apartment in the attic, it also will bring up other questions, because there are some codes requirement if you have an apartment in the 3rd floor in the attic. The basement might have to have sheetrock, fire protected doors, a sprinkler system. There's all sorts of things. Of course, some people can file for variances, or some of these things are grandfathered in, which pretty much means that the property existed this way before the law had changed. However, you will want to investigate this a little bit to make sure that it's all permitted by codes. Now, but let's say for this situation, we're going to assume that this is just a regular attic. Now, what we're going to be looking for, we're going to walk up, take our pictures the same way. Now, along the beams, we're going to look in between the beams, make sure that it's what is it? Is it plywood? Is it planks? Sometimes it could be a thinner plank that runs through the property. And this was originally meant for slate roof. Now, the problem, they have large gaps. Often over time, when the slate roof failed, the owners felt it cost way too much to replace the roof because they would have to plywood the whole thing. Some owners would just pull out the felt paper, roll it out, and shingle away. Now, the problem is sometimes this fails and they will fall like leaves falling in fall. But other times it can last for a little long and then it starts to do that. And you don't want that to happen to you while you own the property. So we want to make sure and know what we're getting into. Now that's the key thing here. It's not that any of these things are terrible or bad or we're not going to take it, but we want to know what it is that we're getting into. For now, since this is our first property and we're looking for something that's already functioning, we may not want too many of these big issues. However, if the property does have this issue and we think it could last us for a few years, we might be able to get a discount in the asking price. Another thing that we want to pay attention to is the beams. Are there any beams that's fractured, that looks like they're broken or they have some kind of damage to them? This could be a potential problem. So we want to pay attention to that. And if the furnace just happens to be in the attic, we want to, of course, take pictures. So remember, take pictures, pictures, pictures. It doesn't cost much. It doesn't take too much time, and it costs practically nothing to take pictures. So take as many pictures as you can, because later we will use those pictures to analyze the property. Okay, so now that we're done with the attic, we want to go outside. This time the realtor's with us. We're going to walk around the whole property. Remember, we did not want to go onto the property until the realtor comes there. We can stay outside, take pictures, cross the streets, stuff like that, but you don't want to go onto the property because that can freak tenants out if they see someone just walking around the property taking pictures. But now that everyone knows we're here, we're going to go around the property. We're going to look at the foundation, see if we see any cracks around the foundation. Do we see any rotten wood, damage, porch, any of that kind of thing? Windows, are there broken windows? And one more important thing is chipping paint. Are there any paint that's chipping? This could be a sign of lead, especially if the property was built before 1978. Make sure you walk around the whole building. Sometimes things that looks good in the front might not be a whole different stories. Landlords and owners will often fix one part with a brand new roof in the front and then the other side, it's an old roof. Landlords do this to save money, or they do it over time. So one year they'll fix one thing, then the next side. Want to make sure we understand the condition of the whole roof and all sides of the property. Now look around the property. See if you see any other structures, garage, barn. We want to photograph that. We want to photograph inside. We want to see how it looks. We want to make sure it's in good condition, porches, decks, all of that is going to be important. Now, that would be the end of this particular inspection. You will thank the realtor, tell him thank you, tell him you will give him a call after you run your numbers. It's great to say after you run your numbers. People will understand that you're not just making a decision off the top of your head or because you like the color of the paint on the wall. So make sure to say after you run your numbers. And guess what? You really will make a decision after you run your numbers. You do not make a decision if it doesn't make sense. If the numbers doesn't make sense, we will not buy this property. Okay? Remember, repeat after me. If the numbers do not make sense, we will not buy the properties. No matter how pretty the neighborhood is, no matter how much we love the brick wall, no matter how much we love the paint, no matter how much we love the tenant, we will not be buying this property. Okay, so that's it, guys. Now, wait for the next video and we'll move on to analyzing the deal. Okay, so don't forget, guys, please help me out. Subscribe, share, like, comment below. Tell me what you think. If you are a landlord who does their own inspections already, I would love to know if you got some tips and tricks of what you look for when you're inspecting a property. And don't forget, guys, don't let this be overwhelming, because a lot of times after a while, you will go through this really fast and it's going to become second nature to you as the more you do it. Okay, so comment below if you have anything to say, and let's start a conversation.